Okay, welcome back to Supercharged SEO, how SEO works. This is the second one in the series, and in this whole series of lessons we're going to really help you get to grips with SEO and make it work for you to build your business, whether online or offline. So in the first lesson we looked at how SEO works. It was quite a long one, but we went through some of the history as well. In this one we're going to really look at the breakdown of a site and about which bits work best and about how social media starts to get involved. In the third one we'll be working with images. Fourth one, server speeds and the technical setup. Fifth one, SEO history, what did work and what you can't do anymore. Lesson 6 will be about how to SEO a site and a page, so that will be really granular, showing you exactly what to do. Lesson 7 is my version of how to build powerful pyramids that will force you to the top and keep you there. And then in lesson 8 we're going to do the perfect landing page in action, so you can actually see this really excellent infographic we've got as well. So let's get on and let's get you started. This will be quite a quick one. There's not a huge amount in this one, but it will be hopefully really useful. There's some really key learnings in it as well, so make some notes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look under the hood of a completely standard website and see how it's made up in simple terms and show you some of the bits within the code as well. Like we said in the first one, there are at least 200 ranking factors for a site. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you which bits have got the biggest impact for SEO and how they interact. Once we've got that, we'll then look at how this translates into search, and we'll go on to prove that social media power can drive a page to the top on its own. So just nothing else on its own can just make it work. So social media for me is completely critical. So let's look at this site. It's quite a big site, M&M Direct. So you'd imagine it's built absolutely perfectly. But I think what I can show you on this is there's a few bits that are really good and a few bits that aren't so good. So the most important factor in search for a main website is that it's the page title. It's the main page title of the site. That alone can make or break your search rankings. If all that said was M&M Direct, they could probably get away with it because they've got a huge site. But if you haven't got a huge site, then focus on this. Really think about what is someone going to put into their search box to try and find your site. Now I'd criticise M&M Direct here because I would put the M&M Direct at the end. So the new convention for me is that the name goes to the end. So cheap men's clothing goes first, then women's and kids clothes goes second, and then M&M Direct goes last. The most important part of your search term that you want to be found for needs to go first in that page title. The second one is the URL. You can see on here you have to have canonical URLs now. The URLs really need to say canonical means is basically the friendly type of URL. On this it really needs to show what the product is. So somewhere in there ideally it should actually say on here. So when you can see it says Ben Sherman's Men's Triumph Formal Brogues Tan. So from that, if you weren't looking at anything else, you'd be able to guess what was on that page, which is in fact Ben Sherman Men's Triumph Formal Brogues Tan. So having that there in the URL is a massive clue as to what's going to be on that page. The next part then is the headline tags. So you can see on there the H1, the H2, H3, H4 and H5. On this particular page, the H1, i.e. the highest level of headline tag, is the product name. So again you can see the H1, Ben Sherman Men's Triumph Formal Brogue Tan. And you can see that the ones below that, the H2s, H3s, H4s, are for the different levels of subheaders. So they're less about the search and what to be found for in the search term and more about navigation. So again on here, the H2s on here might be description, delivery, returns. H3s might be color, code and product detail. Now when you look at the code behind the page, you can see over here, look, the H1, Ben Sherman's Men's Triumph Formal Brogue Tan. So that's the advantage of it, is if you do put things in H1, it's getting driven right through into the code on the actual page. So that's the bit. Google can't really look at pictures. What it can do is read code. So if you're there putting the name of what you want to be found for right into the heart of the code, you're improving your chances of getting found for it. So let's look at how this works in search. So I've put in there that search term, Ben Sherman's Men's Triumph Formal Brogues Tan, which is the name of the product that has been described all over the place. And then when you look, there it is, first position by Ben Sherman Men's Triumph Formal Brogues Tan from M&M Direct. So they've actually got it there straight away. And it's appearing, as you can see down here again, that's very obviously their pictures in the main search term, but also those two pictures of M&M Directs as well. Now the next bit is the body copy. So we've heard a lot about content being king, about content being everything. Content's great, it's a good support, but unless the content is actually on a page that's relevant, that's built right, that's shared correctly, that's actually set in the right context, then the content is wasted really. So you have to make sure you have the supporting content and that's set up right, but ideally you want it to be sort of all part of the same overall sort of goodness really. Then the next one is the social sharing tags, and I'm going to show you why those social tags are so important shortly. Now there's one interesting one, is whether their M&M Direct are actually missing a trick here. So if you look at the name of the image tags, you can see here that they're calling it BS2240_1 cloudzoom.jpg, which I think is missing a massive trick, because the alt tag is really quite an important one. The name of the file is really critical, but the alt tag is really important as well. So look, the reason that was ranking before, I showed you there that it ranked. The reason it ranked is because that picture, which is of the Ben Sherman's Men's Triumph Formal Brogues Tan, whilst it's not called by the right file name, is actually on a page where it says Ben Sherman's there. It's got the file name, it's got the URL, it's got the page title, it's got all of those things there, which are pointing towards the fact that the image on that page is of that brogue. But they're still not helping in some ways, because I've said on here the file name is critical, the alt tags are also critical, in fact, absolutely critical. And when you look at it as again the code, looking into the code here, you can see the alt tag is Ben Sherman's Triumphs Men's Formal, so that proves how important the alt tag is, because that's the one that's actually showing up. But the actual file name there is bs22altimage.jpg. So that's a missed opportunity. For me, they would make it even more secure if they actually called the file name by that Ben Sherman's Men's, but all lowercase and joined up, no underscores, joined up with dashes. So it's a missed trick, but luckily they've alt tagged it okay on here. So where it says really poor alt tags over here, that's actually wrong. The alt tags are fine. It's really poor file names that's the problem. Now, social traffic, as I've shown even in the first one, and I've shown on other things, is absolutely critical. So if people are talking about you on any or all of the social channels, such as Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, you will rank more highly. Google ranks social traffic. We know that. They started ranking social traffic from about 2010, and for me it's just become more and more important. So comments, conversations on blogs work incredibly well too. A blog post with comments will always rank more highly, as I'm going to show you in the next slide. And I think there's huge evidence to now show that social traffic is becoming the #1 SEO tool away from the build and content of the site itself. So if the site is okay, then the #1 external ranking factor is social traffic, social engagement. So actually showing to Google, you're signaling to Google that it's really relevant content. And it's why your site needs to make it easier to share with their peers and easier for people to talk about you online. So that's why we need those social sharing tags on the page as well, to make it even easier to get that out. But it's also really important that you don't just shout down the same message down every social channel, or what you end up doing is it just sort of looks like web spam. So customers hate it, it looks awful. You're not creating sensible voices down each of the channels. So avoid that at your peril. So if you are going to use a voice, decide on a voice for each of the social channels and then stick to it. So I'm going to prove to you now why social interaction is everything with a couple of posts of mine. So this one here, hardly the top ranking site on there, but this is a blog post I wrote in November 2012, and it's about a company called Ecomai, who are bear in mind mine is just like a blog, and theirs is a huge, great multinational business set up in Denmark and Germany and all over in the States, everywhere. And I wrote a reasonably negative review about them because I tried to I wasn't trying to prove a point. I tried to buy something from one of their customers, and the service was absolutely awful. So there's been no promotion on this post at all. It's on my blog, but there's been 50 comments on it and lots of social sharing. And over the course of a couple of years, it dropped off the first page of Google completely. But then an executive of eComi decided to try and put things from their perspective. They came on and started responding to the blog posts, and they made such a mess of it, because the more eComi responded and tried to defend themselves, the worse they were making the situation, because other people were then piling in and saying how awful eComi were. So it went from 18 posts or 18 comments to 50 comments in the space of about 2 days. And Google immediately think, well, there's something going on here. This must be very, very relevant traffic. There must be something really live going on this page. So my ranking for this particular post went through the roof. The more they dug in, the more they made it worse. So if you do see really terrible reviews, the best thing to do is not respond. Is try and create another page that will go above it by getting more positive responses above it. And here's another one. This is one about The Apprentice, the program. I think it's in the States as well, in the UK and the US. And I've never really enjoyed the program. I always thought it was quite bad for business. And so I wrote an article about why it was bad for business, about how it sort of breeds people having to fight against each other and not being sort of conducive language to business. And very, very quickly it got to #1 in the UK for search, is The Apprentice bad for business? And the reason was partly because the article was decent length. It was quite a good article. It was reasonably well argued and the like. But then when you looked at this, it got shared on LinkedIn 59 times and it got shared on Facebook 72 times. And so because of that, Google saw again, wow, there's something going on here. This must be important. The people who are reading it are liking it and they're wanting to share it with their friends and colleagues. So we should put some ranking to it. It's only on my blog. It's not a particularly important blog at all, but just by doing that, it actually managed to raise it up. So that's the summary. Well, that's the first bit, or the second part of SEO. So looking at how a site's made up and which bits are important. So to go through it again, it's really just about page title, but title is the first one, and then building it right all the way through. We looked underneath the hood of the site and we identified which bits make the biggest difference. We looked at how to benefit from images as well as the text you use, but we'll go into that in much more detail in the next one. And we've looked at the power of social media and engagement, and when it comes to real SEO in the real world, and those are the things that really start to make a difference. So in the next lesson, lesson 3, we're going to look at images and image tagging in more detail, and we're going to show you how powerful it can be for you as well. So we will see you there. Thank you.